I've got a secret for you. You could actually afford to buy a home. Well, I don't know your financial situation, but I do know this. Much more of you guys that are listening right now can afford to buy a home than realize it. There is a tremendous amount of people in the United States that don't realize how easy it can be to buy a house. I think the automatic thought process is $300,000 house, $400,000 house, $500,000. $500,000, that's $500,000. I can't afford a $500,000 house. Where am I going to come up with $500,000? And yeah, I'm not trying to say people are idiots in terms of not being aware of the whole process of financing, but a lot of people are certainly aware of the cost of financing a vehicle. And if you have a nicer vehicle, you can see how much money it actually takes. And then you think about, well, that's something that's only $60,000. So I can't imagine what it's going to cost me for a $500,000 house. Well, it's actually much cheaper than you realize. Stay with me. First of all, let's start with, should you buy a home? For most of you, I'm going to say absolutely yes. Especially you that are younger. The younger you are, the more I say absolutely go buy a house right now. Well, it's easier than you think, but you still need a down payment. Fool! A veteran can buy a house with no down payment. Zero down VA loan. Don't know what I'm talking about. And we're going to get to that. Stay with me. But let's just run through some of the basics. Before I talk about encouraging you to actually purchase a home, let's dispel a common myth. Everyone should buy a home. It's the right way to go. If you're renting, you're just throwing your money away. My aunt bought a house for $200,000 and she just sold it for $380,000. Never mind how much she actually spent on the house while she was living there, but she sold it for way more than she paid for it. She's rich. Anyway, so the answer is no. Not everyone should buy a house. The fundamental decision should be about, or you should be looking at, what's cheaper? Is it cheaper to rent or is it cheaper to own? That's one of the key factors to look at. Additionally, the myth of only people who are homeowners are the ones who can build wealth, that is absolutely nonsense. You have one individual who has $30,000 in the bank and another one with $30,000 in the bank. One invests that in index funds and just lets it sit there for 30 years. The other one uses it for the down payment in a house. 30 years later, the house is worth a lot more money, but so is that index fund. Now, the homeowner in most cases will have an edge, but not as much as people present it to be. The person who rented for all those years, if he's in a market where renting is actually cheaper, that person makes the right financial decisions in terms of where they invest their money. They can actually do better or at least be competitive with the homeowner. Because the homeowner, yeah, you bought a house and the value went up. Yeah, that's nice. But how much did you spend on repairs? Plumbing, roof repair, the taxes, paint, on and on and on and on. So you've got to look at the net result of the homeowner versus the renter to really understand who did better than the other. But the idea that automatically when you purchase a home, you're guaranteed to be doing the right thing, the better thing, you're going to end up in a better situation, that is not accurate at all. It's case by case basis, it's market conditions basis, and you've got to look at the net result. How much did you spend in the time that you were in the house versus how much did you sell the house for? So you start with your down payment, you add up all of your interest payments, you add up all of your principal payments, you add up all of your maintenance, your taxes, all of that, and then you look at the difference between that and the money you get when you sell the house. And that's the real number that matters. A lot of people are going around spreading these stories about, oh, he only paid 200 grand for the house and he sold it for twice that, discounting the costs. So don't fall for that trap. Yes, more times than not, home ownership is the way to go, and there are a lot of advantages that will give you an ultimate, but it might not be as juicy as you think. So how do you decide? Should you buy or should you rent? This is the way I would look at it. If you're at a stage in your life where you're not really sure as far as your career and therefore potentially where you actually live, at that point in time, you probably want the flexibility to, in that scenario, probably not a good idea to buy, regardless of whether rent is cheaper or not. Because the idea of the expense of buying a house, because there's a lot of upfront costs, and then being there only for a couple of years, and then looking to move somewhere else, so then there's also costs associated with selling the house. And you can spend a lot of time paying predominantly interest, which means you could stay there for 3 years, make all your payments, and yet not really have any equity at all, because most of the money that you're paying ends up going into the interest, because the bank is loaning you the money. That's a service, right? They're allowing you to borrow their money so you can purchase a house. The fee for that service is the interest that you pay on the loan. And the way that most banks operate is that they sort of front load most of the interest, meaning that you're going to pay a lot of interest in the beginning, and then over time the interest lowers and lowers and lowers. But one of the negative effects of that is that initially, the first few years, you don't really build any equity, because so I can explain how this works. The bank loans you $500,000 to buy a house, and you pay mostly interest for 2 years. So at the end of those 2 years, the amount of money that you owe could be really, really close to $500,000, because you owe the bank not only just the amount that they loaned you, but also the interest payments. And if most of your money is going to interest, then that means you're not really paying back much of the money that they loaned you. So you kind of start out not really going anywhere. It's kind of like you're stuck. You're in a hamster wheel. You're paying and you're paying and you're paying, but you're not really progressing. So if you move within that period of time, it can end up being a really bad financial decision. So don't think about buying if you're not sure about where you're going to be for the next 5 years. You want to be in some place for at least 5 years, because again, owning a home for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, not a good idea. So for the ultimate in flexibility, renting wins. The next factor is, are you really ready to buy a house? Now, again, I think much more of you are ready to buy a house than are actually aware. If you haven't spent the time doing any research and understanding the process, what types of mortgages are out there, then there's a good chance that you actually might be able to afford a house and not actually realize it. Because I will tell you from personal experience, before I did the research, I had no idea how easy it was. And it's not even about high income people. I mean, obviously the more money you have, the better, but there are options for people with very low income where if you really want to purchase a home, you can. There's so many scenarios, and I will cover them in this video and future videos. By the way, I'm going to be doing a series where we're going to actually go through the process of getting into investment properties. So pretty much I'm going to talk about different types of mortgages, how to get approved, and the whole process, the costs associated with it, renovating, flipping, all that good stuff. I'm actually not going to just talk about it. I'm going to actually do it, and you can follow along. So if you're interested in that, you know what to do. Click on the like button, subscribe, and make sure you smash that bell. Smash that bell! So let's just get right down to it. How much will it cost you to buy your home, your humble abode? Well, zero down. If you're a veteran, you can get a VA loan and pay zero down. So, if you're a veteran, you can afford a home because you don't have to pay anything to buy one. Now, that's not technically accurate. You do have to pay something, and I'll cover that in a future video. But generally speaking, you don't need to have some big down payment of $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, $80,000, $90,000, $100,000. You get the point. Zero down, VA loan. So you can also get an FHA loan. An FHA loan, you can pay maybe 3.5% down, 6% down, depends on a lot of factors. You got 650, 640 or more credit. Actually, they'll take even lower credit than that. But if you got 640 or more, you are good to go. FHA loans, VA loans, you can even be in the 500s. Did you hear what I said? 500s. You could literally have a credit score of 550, 560, 570. Why am I speaking like this? I don't know. But you could have poor or bad credit and still qualify for a loan and zero down, or 3.5% down, or 6.5% down, or 4.5% down. What does this actually mean? How much is 4.5% down? How much is 6.5%? Let's break out the calculator and see what up. So let's say you want to buy a house that's worth $290,000, but you don't have $290,000. Well, with some of the loans that I've mentioned, you could pay perhaps $30,000. That'll be 10% down. So you could actually pay even less than that. Let's see, $25,000. That will be 9% down. You could pay less than that. How about $20,000? That will be 7%. So you could pay less than that. How about $15,000? That will be 5%. So there are loans that you can pay $15,000 and buy a $290,000 house. Damn! Oh yeah. Or you can get it at 3.5%. Let's see if we can get it down to 3.5%. $10,000. 3%. 10,500. 10,200. There you go. 4%. So you could pay less than $10,000 and get you a $290,000 house with an FHA loan. So if you have $10,000 in the bank, you could get a near $300,000 house today. But you probably wouldn't want to do that because you want to have some kind of reserves, and we'll cover that in future episodes in terms of how much money you should have in the bank. Money in the bank, shorty, what you think? We'll talk about that. It's pretty amazing that for as little as $10,000, you can own a $290,000 house. That is amazing. What? If you did that, your mortgage would be $1,900 a month. For many of you, that's good to go. And consider you're also building up equity, which is a key thing to consider. You're building equity and therefore wealth. So don't just look at it as an expense of $1,900 a month. Look at it as building equity. Eventually, gotta get a few years in before you really start building any equity because you're paying mostly interest, and we'll cover that more in detail in future episodes. So I would say you can pay as little as $8,000. So instead of paying $8,000 and buying you some fancy car so you can brag, you could spend $8,000 to acquire a $290,000 house and start building some equity. That's what's up. And if you're in the right market and you get a multifamily, and we'll talk about that in future episodes, you can actually have it be not only appreciating, but also cash flowing, which means money in the bank. So every month, not only are you building up equity, but you're also getting income. Once again, I'll talk about that in future episodes right here in Carlisle's Picks. If you enjoyed this episode, definitely click on the like button, smash that bell, subscribe, and thank you for watching. And there's more good stuff where this came from right here on Carlisle's Picks. So I promised my subscribers I'm going to do one video per day for 30 days. And if I miss a day, somebody wins $100. Will I miss a day? Good luck with that. But anyway, it is what it is. Additionally, I'll be giving $150 to anyone that watches every single episode and can list all of the secret keywords or code words, or call them words. You win $150. $150. Anyway, I'm not going to make this video run on any longer than it already has. Subscribe. See you in the next episode. Be well. Build wealth. Don't get distracted. Don't let obstacles hold you back. Just keep building, growing, learning, investing. That, and I'm out. Yeah! What the hell was that?